Okay, let me tell you, never have I ever met someone whose beliefs mirror mine so perfectly on how a successful security guard company should be run. I've talked with him hours upon hours upon hours upon days on strategies around how security guard companies, again, should be run. The guy is absolutely brilliant. But don't take my word for it. I'll let you be the judge of that. Let's get it. Hey, Joe, for those of the audience that don't know you or know Cardinal Consulting, can you tell us a little background about yourself, the company?
Um, I've been in the security guard service business for over 35 years and owned my own service in Dallas for a number of years. I sold that service, and then at the time I sold it, um, I had two people come to me and say they wanted to start their own security guard service. And that's how Cardinal was born. Um, I was actually working for another company, but went out and started Cardinal Consulting, and then worked with these two folks while they started building their security guard company. Basically, both of them started from the ground up. And a few years back, I decided that I wasn't going to work for anybody else or do anything on a permanent basis. So about 7 or 8 years ago, I decided I was just going to work on Cardinal, and I would just concentrate on working with security guard owners and managers.
So in talking about security, you're talking about this from having done it yourself, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, of course. I own my own company, and I worked for a couple of the big nationals back in the 70s and 80s. In fact, I was very, very lucky that I was at one time employed by CPP, that was California Plant Protection. They were based in Van Nuys, California, owned by Tom Watson. He was the owner. Fantastic guy. The thing I learned from Tom Watson was this: train your managers. And they lived by that theory. They had a 8-week class that we attended, just like an academy class, um, where they taught us the ways and means of CPP and how to do everything and how to respond and how to do payroll. I could have went to any office in their system anywhere in the country and picked up and become a manager that day because I knew their procedures and their policies inside out. Nobody else does that. Nobody's done it since then that I'm aware of.
So is that one of the things that you would say contributed to your success?
Yeah, most definitely. That's kind of the thing that's always driven me. I always looked out and saw folks who were really struggling with, trying to start a security guard service business. And a lot of the times they might have been successful in some other field, but then they came over here and they were just, they kind of fall off the wagon, so to speak. And I always felt like, boy, if we could do something, or if I could do something to help that person and teach them the ropes, that would be very beneficial to them. It's not always about the money. It sometimes it's just I'm really proud of the people I've helped and seen them grow and develop. I mean, it's like having your son go off to Yale. Okay, I mean they really understand and become very, very proficient. Some of them go into a niche in the private security arena. Some of them take anything. And some things I warn them away from too. But sometimes people do what they want to do no matter what, and they, end up stepping on a landmine.
So you talked, yeah, I've seen a lot of people step on a lot of landmines. So you talked about startups. So I mean, what does your typical client look like, and what does that engagement look like with them?
Well, my typical clients who are startups. Now, I've got people all across the spectrum, um, but the startup people are usually just a one-man operation. Maybe he worked for another security company someplace else. He decides he's going to go out on his own. And, he walks out there and he may have been a great operations manager, but usually where these poor folks fall down on it is that they don't have any sales training. And they're fearful of sales. So, you have to really work with them and get them over the hump on the sales aspect of it. And once they've done that and they've sold 3 or 4 real jobs, and they see it's not as forbidding as they, made it out to be in their minds, they usually take right off.
Okay, so you mentioned one of the obstacles being sales, right, for earlier stage companies. If there were, three obstacles, what would the other two be?
Well, of course, sales, um, probably probably customer service is a big one. Not only how to relay that into your employees, but to be a good customer service provider to your clients. Um, you know, they look for you to be their security manager because most of the clients that we have are not security people. They're property managers or plant managers or um, store managers. They really have no aspect. They have no mindset on what's supposed to go on in the security realm. So they look to you to be able to provide that professionalism, but also you've got to know how to treat people. It's not like we're selling you a case of bricks and we drop them on the sidewalk and we leave. We're there with them 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And customer service to your clients and the way your employees are reacting to their employees and customers, top priority, top. If you can whip that horse into shape, the rest of it is, pretty much simple HR and people skills, operations and things like that. I mean, the sales and the customer service go hand in hand. And if you have a hard time with sales and customer service, you're probably not going to make it.
I heard that. And that is the absolute truth. So I tell, most of the people that we talk to, including our clients, sales is probably what makes your security guard company more than anything else, right? Because you have to get out there. To your point, they might be subject matter experts in operations, but when it comes down to sales, yeah, that's hard. So we name sales and customer service. What would be the third thing?
Well, I guess HR really. I think that the process of properly hiring and training and doing background investigations and making sure that you cross all the T's and dot all the I's. I mean, it's really, really imperative now, more so than it was like 40 years ago. You cannot hire people and just look the other way and let things happen. So HR is probably number three.
Okay. So sales, customer service, and HR. And I would agree with you on all three. So circling back, what does the actual engagement look like between you and your clients? Are you meeting once a month, once a week, once a year? I mean, what does that look like?
It varies. Okay, the startup people, they're usually once a week or once every other week. The larger companies, it's more on an on-call project basis, and probably you could say once a month for sure. Sit down, powwow with them once a month. The newer, the smaller ones, they really do need the hand holding. So it's going to be a shorter duration for them.
Got it. So you've been working with a lot of clients. What would be, tell me about one of your biggest success stories with your clients.
Well, actually, I think I hate to pat myself on the back. I don't want to break my own arm, but, these people did it on their own. They didn't just do it because I told them what to do. But the very first client I ever had, he was a single person, startup guy. He went out, started his own business, and he worked at it really hard. He wasn't a sales pro, but he learned to be a sales pro, and he built it up. And I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of his company, his organization. I mean, I think they're 55, 60 million this year. They're in the top 25 security guard companies in America.
Incredible. Now, how did they get there? Right? Because, at our largest, we weren't even close to 50 million, right? Actually, one of the companies I worked with was. But I mean, it seems like such an impossible thing.
Well, It's been 20 years. It's not like it happened overnight. Okay. But the, the thing of it is, he was always moving forward. Okay. And he was always trying to, be really super professional and, he, and he just had he was one of those kind of guys that he'd work 23 hours a day. That's what it was. And he'd work on things 23 hours a day until he got it done. And he would never let it slip. Now, along the way, as he built his company, other folks he hired came in and they were main contributors too. He added a great sales guy in Dallas and he added a great sales guy in Houston. And they built it, and on top of that, it just kind of took off. I mean, people were calling them to ask them to bid jobs. It wasn't like I had to chase everybody around the block 3 times to have them say yes, but um, it was a breath of fresh air. Okay, and this also happened, and I don't want to beat this point too much, but this also happened during a phase in the security guard industry where most of the national companies in this country were bought out by foreign interests. And it seems to me that a lot of companies that were bought out ended up really just looking at their customers like numbers thereafter, and they lost that American flag appeal on their on their logo. And I'm not ashamed of this, but I'm based in Texas, and most of these customers were in Texas, and they didn't take too kindly to it. I don't think that a foreign country. I mean, on the other hand, I know I once talked to the director of Houston's port, the port of Houston, and he told me that he thought it wasn't a very good idea that they would let a foreign interest guard service handle the security at the Port of Houston.
That's exactly it, right? So, I mean, if you're part of critical infrastructure, you would think defense of that critical infrastructure would be local, right? Or not even local, but controlled here. So that totally makes sense. So talking about local companies, right? It's something that you kind of referred to recently, just a couple seconds ago. So, do you think that local companies are better positioned to provide security guard service than like your national companies?
I think they're better positioned to supply customer service to their clients because the owners, most locally owned and operated companies are the owner's going to be involved in it. Okay. And he takes care, he's not going anywhere. And no offense against the international companies, but their turnover in branch management is almost as bad as turnover in guard services. They have people come and go, come and go. And, from a customer service standpoint, if I am the customer and I have a different branch manager I have to deal with every year from the service I'm providing, I mean, it's almost like a different company takes over when a branch manager changes at that level. So the local, regional, operated companies that are locally owned and operated, I think they have a big advantage over the nationals or the internationals when it comes to that type of customer service.
I totally agree. Totally agree. So, and I mean, I hear that from, so I know a couple of buyers of security guard service in the industry, and that's what they say, right? So in terms of uniformity, you buy the nationals for uniformity, right? So if you have offices from California to Maine, you can kind of sort of get the same service, one invoice, whatever. But when it comes down to responsiveness, that's where they don't get that, the loving feeling that they would get from a local company. So no, I've definitely heard that from buyers. So you said something earlier, right, about this customer, your client. You said that he was truly devoted to providing that service, right? So I've talked to a lot of startups and a lot of smaller companies where the owner is working a full-time day job and trying to run a security guard company.
Look, I understand that, but you can't live, you can't have two masters. I understand that there are people that are trying to work to keep food on the table and the lights on at the house. But if you're going to open a service, a company, a security guard service, and you're going to be dedicated to it, that means you got to be dedicated to it when the customers are there. That means Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I understand when I first started mine, I worked on weekends, okay, for a company, and but it was just a weekend job. And I mean, when it was 40 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week, I was actually working on building my business. And that's the tough part. The same thing goes for some of these young managers that are out there in the field working as security officers. I mean, they're in the same boat with that guy. They're wasting their time. Their time is more valuable if they're dedicating themselves towards sales and customer development, not standing a post or patrolling a parking lot. That's a waste of their time.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, and again, to your point, it's a hard thing, but it requires sacrifice sometimes, right? I mean, I remember doing the same thing. I quit my job, probably 6 months into starting our security guard company, and really kind of lived off savings. So to some degree, I think if you're going to start a security guard company, you probably need to, bank some cash before you make that jump.
Right. And the thing of it is, too, to open a security guard service, it's a very low entry. You don't need $100,000 to do it. But more so that the owner needs to have, he needs to have his savings, or he needs to have some kind of a money stockpile someplace where it's going to pay his life expenses while he's developing it.
All right. So rewinding to one of the things that you talked about earlier, right? Sales. Sales is hard. And it's not just about sales. It's just not about the soft skills, right? You have to have tools. For your clients, what tools do you suggest or demand that they start to use?
Well, they have to have a CRM database, an online computer system where they maintain all of their data. And then what I mean by data is I mean sales leads and information on those companies. So, and the CRM program that is available, it's going to allow them to keep all their leads in the same spot, be able to identify the leads for various different reasons, maybe an SIC code number, maybe a location, maybe an industry, and who the competitor is, who's working there, all that information, and then to be able to contact those people through email, through text, through direct mail, any fashion that you can think of, being able to utilize that method of communication, where you can, because all three of them work, they still work, and the telephone too. Yeah. Okay, the telephone still works. I hear it all the time. Well, all I ever get's a voicemail. Well, you get a hold of the prospect, and you'll get more than likely, he's going to give you a cell phone number 9 times out of 10, which is fine. I'll be glad to take a cell phone number. Okay, because it's the same thing. You can text them as long as you got their cell phone number. If they have a landline at the office, the company, you can't text the landline.
So before you move on to the other tools, yeah. I know a lot of people who will start off and say, I'm using Microsoft Outlook, I'm using Microsoft Excel, I'm using MailChimp or whatever that is, and that's my CRM. Can you really use those tools to replace the CRM?
In my opinion, no. You can't have 15 pieces over here with all these different programs that don't even talk to one another, really. Get one that everything's under one roof, okay? And then it's not only can you keep your prospects here, but you can also keep your customers here. And, it doesn't take much to add on to them, so you can do your billing directly out of the same program. That's what a CRM, customer relation management program, is all about. I'm kind of shocked sometimes that so many people don't grasp this. it's the only way to keep your data organized on prospects. I learned a long time ago, when I remember the highest tech item on my desk was a Rolodex. It didn't take me very long to figure out that there had to be another method when computers really started to rise. Like back in the early 90s, I came in contact with a program at that time that was called ACT by Semantic. And ACT was a standalone database, and it had most of those tools I just mentioned in it, except some of them really didn't work very well. But it was the basic principle idea for most of what you see in CRMs today. And as soon as I could get my little hands on it, I grabbed one and I taught myself how to use it. And a lot of the work that I did back then was on direct mail, but I was able to send out a lot of direct mail, professionally done. I was able to beat the big national competitors. My stuff looked better than theirs. Okay. I mean, back in the day when everybody just used direct mail, that was even before email.
So I think, on top of having all your information under, kind of one pane of glass, for us, I've been using CRMs for probably 20, 25 years, right? I remember starting out with ACT, right? That was the go-to for me. Then after that, moved over to Salesforce. Loved Salesforce until I really realized how complicated and complex it was, right? And then moved over to HubSpot, and we're in the process of working on our own CRM as well. But one of the benefits, and you tell me if I'm incorrect here, I think one of the main benefits of working with CRM is about the automation tools.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the automation to where you don't have to, you can plug in so many leads, you can send out letters, they can respond, they can schedule an appointment, all these things where before in the old days, you had to chase them down. Then, you had to get on the phone with them and you had to make the connection. They can actually do all that automated. And really the only time you have to, I won't say it this way. The only time you have to deal with them is when the appointment starts.
Again, the benefit to this automation is, I think I did a video a long time ago about being able to sell without having to sell, right? So once you plug in a person into, kind of a trickle campaign or a nurture campaign, you put one person in, they get 20 emails over the course of 20 weeks. And the idea is that they reach out and say, hey, I want to talk to you. And this is, again, without you actually having to talk to the clients because it's just more efficient.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and that's exactly what I agree with that wholeheartedly. I myself wouldn't send out an email every week, but everybody has their own standard in that regard. But yes, but look, that really comes back to an old rule that I still preach to everybody now as much as I can, whenever I can. And that's the old fact that nobody's going to buy anything from you till they heard your name 5 times. So how does that buyer become familiar with me? I'm a brand new company and I just started, or I've only been in business for a couple of years, and I don't have money to spend on advertising and TV or radio ads or books or anything like that. I'm just trying to use direct marketing methods. So the best way to do it in the world is to put a letter, an email right in front of that particular prospect. As much as you can, as often as you can, you put your name out there. And after a while, that person will see your name as something he's familiar with. And then it'll be a lot easier for him to pick up the phone and call you or email you and ask you to come out. Now, let me just say this too. That's not the only way to make a sale. You can't sit at home and wait for the phone to ring. I mean, it does happen through the automation, but you have to attack. Okay. I mean, that's a piece of sales that is working, with the automation. But as the owner, you have to attack. You have to get up and go into the lobby of a factory and go in and ask to see the plant manager and introduce yourself. Now, I wouldn't do that out of the cold, on a cold walk-in. If I'm sending information out to them, okay, 2 or 3 letters over a period of a couple of months, or maybe every other week, something like that, then I got a pretty good chance if I walk into the lobby and speak to the receptionist and ask them that I tell them I want to see Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith's going to maybe have a fairly good idea of who I am and who my company is because he's seen my correspondence, whether it be email, direct mail, text, advertising, whatever.
Joe, that is so spot on, right? So I've taken that 5 and I've pushed it to 8. So again, the idea is our customers see us the exact same way. They see us in emails, they see us in social media, they see us on LinkedIn. We'll come to town, host lunches, dinners, and to your point, once people see your name enough, right, they start to trust and understand who you are, and it's much easier to close a sale when you're doing that.
Right. And you're not, they realize, of course, you're not some fly by night outfit they've never heard of that's here today, gone tomorrow. And, one of the big fears of the buyers is when you're a new company and you come in the door and they see you and they say, I've never seen you before. I've never heard of you before, really. But, how do they know you're going to be here next year? They lay down $250,000 for you to put a security guard in their office building. And then one day they come to work and your company went chapter 11 and you're gone. I mean, they're stuck. I had a couple of people tell me in the beginning, hey, Joe, I really like you. I really want to do business with you. But you know what? Come back in 2 years, because they know a lot of businesses fail in the first 5 years.
So if there was one piece of advice that you could give to security guard company owners in 2023, what would that piece of advice be?
To actively develop a true customer service training for their security guard force, to spend money in that realm, to have your people learn how to treat customers, learn how to treat employees at the locations, to remember that our job isn't to bust heads and put on handcuffs. Our jobs at most of those kinds of locations are to observe and report, okay, and how to be better and how to be better reporters. But that's all part of a customer service training. If they have to know how to communicate not only verbally but written. Now, your Officer Reports computer program, which allows them to write a report that's legible and understandable, is a big help on those kinds of things. But, this is a big, I mean, I wrote an article on this not long ago. I was always a fan of Tom Peters, the old customer service guru back in the 90s. And, it's been 40 years since Tom wrote the book about customer service and things that, people should do to make their, and everybody jumped on the bandwagon back then. It was a big thing, customer service. And now it's all just lip service. I don't see anybody doing it. I'll tell you what, I take that back. There is one company that does it, and that's Chick-fil-A. I don't care what Chick-fil-A you go into, anywhere in this country, the kids that work there, the people that work there, they're polite. They seem to have certain phrases that they use a lot, but they're always polite. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. I mean, compare them against somebody like a McDonald's and, some of the other fast food restaurants. And there's a marked difference. Your company, your security company, has to be the one that shows the marked difference.
Yeah, I mean, it really, because it becomes a corporate culture thing, and that helps your company thrive. So Joe, you've dropped a bunch of gems on people over the past hour, and I know there are going to be a ton of folks out here who are interested in contacting you. How do people find you?
I'm easy to get a hold of. My website is www.cardinalcsm.com. And my email is jrussell@cardinalcsm.com. We're on and my cell number, 972-369-6533. Located in beautiful McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas.
Excellent. Well, Joe, it has been a pleasure as always. Thanks for jumping on, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you later.